Live streaming is on.
Hey.
Hey. So hello, this is another Extinctionati meeting. It's the meeting 122. Today is Sunday, October the 30th, 2022. We have no agenda. If anybody wants to join in, you're welcome. And I don't really know how to start, but I was thinking that we had quite a few things on the sub. I don't know if anybody wants to come back on post, because it was quite various. There was, of course, the usual collapse things, but there was lots of things, and I leave it to you if you have something you'd like to bring up. Anyone?
Oh yeah, the only thing I want to bring up is the collapse ecology, climate, and civilization posts. This DGR's new project. So if you don't know, Deep Green Resistance is they want to do a speaking tour all over the US, and they want to raise, I think, $25,000 for different things like security, arrangements, maybe flight tickets and all that. And they mentioned that whenever they go on speaking tours, they get a lot of backlash, and so that's why they're doing a lot of preparation. And they have an event. Just gonna look it up on November 16, I believe. Let me double check. 19, November 19th, Pacific. Sometime in November 19th, they're gonna have like a live stream event, so that they're gonna promote their speaking tour as well as other projects that they're working on. So if you like what they do, just go ahead and check them out and check out their page as well. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, yeah, I've had a look at it, and you can donate very. I mean, you can, even if you don't have money, you can donate very little. But I think it's one of those things. I usually don't do these things, but those people in DGR, they're so sound. Like, there's just, yeah, they're so sound.
Yeah, it's out
And
of all the.
They don't seem to have any finances of any kind. So
they're very. They even have it in their title, collapse. So it seems like they're aware and they know where they're going in terms of the future. But
yeah, and they're very independent.
Yes, yeah. But yeah, other than that, I don't know any other groups that I.
When is that happening?
November 19th.
November 19th. Okay.
At 3 p.m. Pacific time.
Okay, I know this. November 19th Pacific time. And it's a live stream too, is it? It's
yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, that's good that you brought that up, because you see, I'd read it and I just put it to the back of my mind and I forgot about it. So thank you for that.
Hello, Martin. Hello, Sue, by the way. Yeah. So this week we are streaming live to YouTube for the first time, I think, from this Extinctionati thing, and it's not a very big difference from the last week. The only thing is that if there are some interesting comments on the YouTube chat, then I may read them up in this show. So we don't want to change the format of this show completely. It's just an experiment to see if we can get more participation from the YouTube crowd. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So don't worry about it. I will inform you if there's anything interesting going on.
Thank you. So it's happening at the moment live on YouTube. Is that
Yes,
it?
it is.
So anybody who wants to join can join.
Yeah, and
Okay.
I wish we didn't have this summertime, wintertime nonsense, because I had 1 hour less to prepare this show. So
Yeah. I know, and it's just such nonsense. And every year people are asking for it to stop, and it's not stopping, and it's just continuous, and it's been imposed on us when we have no say about it. And if you want to continue to live with the times of nature, you can't. You basically,
Mm.
thrown out. I wanted to bring up. I know I'm always talking about food and things, but I posted an article on Reddit, and it's called "Modern Diets Are Killing Us." And I wonder. I mean, there's not much to add to the article because it's extremely long, it's extremely well documented, it's extremely right, and it's extremely a doomer's article in the sense that they don't expect anything to change unless our civilization collapses because it's all tied into the system. But I was wondering if any of you had the chance to or the time to read that article, because it's just it goes everywhere. It touches health, it touches weight, it touches agriculture, it touches hunter gatherers. I mean, name it. It's very. I mean, I found it by chance. It was suggested to me by a nice algorithm on Substack. But it starts with the story of the teeth, because it's a dentist prompted the subject, and the evolution of teeth in humans, and how decay started to happen and jaws started to get smaller because people were not chewing enough, and the whole thing. But it also talks a lot about the diet of people, how people actually did eat with historical sources, in the medieval times, in the 19th century, comparing calories, meat intake, which was much bigger. People were eating much more meat than now. Um, of course, compared to their lifestyle, it was necessary, but fat too. I mean, it's a whole. I don't know. Have you any comments on that? Because I don't want to read the article again. It would take us the whole meeting. But did you have any thoughts?
No, I wasn't
Well,
able to read the article, but oh, go ahead.
yeah, I didn't read it, but from what I've gathered, people 100 years ago who were lumberjacks or working physically on the land and stuff, and hunters or whatever, of course, had to eat something else than these vegetarian things they're eating now, and yeah, it sounds plausible to me.
Well, what apart from the teeth thing, but it's also noting in the article the health conditions with obesity. We all know diabetes, high blood pressure, depression, but it's also talking about the effects of modern diets on plenty of other things like puberty happening earlier, acne that didn't exist in hunter-gatherer civilizations, allergies that are epidemic, and nearsightedness, which was due to modern life. I mean, there's so many things. I mean, cancers, of course, and everything seems to be turning around our consumer society, our bad eating society, our polluted agriculture, and so if you haven't already, I would just tell you, if you have some time, if you're interested in the subject, it's well worth reading. There's a lot of things in it, and it really makes you think. Anyway, that was what I wanted to bring up. Torstein, you also put something complete on a different subject, but you brought up something about Musk and Twitter. I mean, I'm not really following that because I'm not on Twitter, but have you got some information on that? Is it worthwhile commenting,
Yes,
or is it?
yes, I think that can be interesting. Yeah, it's people have different views about Musk and Twitter and censorship and everything. I think from a slightly more neutral-ish viewpoint. It's good news that Twitter is becoming less, let's say, politically censored. We appreciate people from all kinds of traditions and beliefs and politics to be able to freely express themselves. And I don't think we will have a new Holocaust just because people can say the F word on Twitter. So I think that there's a lot of people who have just disappeared from Twitter over the past 4 or 5 years. Dissidents, different kinds of activists that can now that couldn't say anything after they were just banned for life from Twitter. So getting a new start on Twitter under Elon Musk, I think it's a good thing. And the same controversy, of course, about President Trump. Some hate him, some love him, but I think a lot of us, at least anarchists, can agree that you should not ban a sitting president from an online platform just because somebody in the company disagrees with him. So I welcome that. I don't want to ban Joe Biden from Twitter. I'm kind of the live and let live type. So I think as I've gathered generally about censorship and online media, let's say we or the DGR, the radical environmentalists, we were supposed to be the next in line to be banned, for not towing the official line, for talking about climate in a slightly different way than the corporate fake green people. So being against censorship, I think, is a good thing, and freedom of expression is one of the very few good things about global civilization, or at least Western civilization. So yeah. When I was out with these little Santa's helpers people the other day on Friday, I was also celebrating the fact that Twitter was freed from the political censorship. Yeah.
Well, censorship is going to, in my opinion, is going to increase everywhere. So it's good to wish for that, but I don't think we're going to see that happening. It might be done in a different way, but might not be as obvious as banning Trump or stuff like that. But with a guy like Musk at the wheel, I don't know who is. I don't know this guy. I mean, I know he looks like for me, like he looks like a stupid idiot. But I mean, I don't know. Can he be swayed easily? Who's his influencers? What sort of political thing would have a grasp on him? I don't know. I have no idea because I really I remember what Lord Hugh used to say about him. But is it very important? That my question is more: is it very important that a billionaire like Musk is owning Twitter? Do you think it's going to make has it got some weight, or should we discard that as just another media news sensational?
Well, I think the relevant debate about this is should you be allowed to say things that are legal to say in America in general? Should you also be allowed to say that on YouTube and Twitter and stuff, right? So the difference from before Friday is that now you can say even the F word, and I think you are even allowed to talk about what kind of color you have on your skin and stuff, and maybe even call people a masculine B word or a feminine B word without losing your Twitter account. But that's just the sort of the easy stuff. But
So it's less woke.
yeah, it's less woke and freer. The main thing, as I said, is that things that are not illegal to do or say in real life, you can now also do or say on Twitter. And the hopeful people are hoping that this will also spread to YouTube and other platforms. And I think we've already seen that YouTube has been become a little bit more relaxed about uh, what you say. You can even mention the medicine that people have gotten for a
Really?
pandemic thing on
Can you say
YouTube
the
without
word B? You can
yeah,
say the B word?
without immediately losing your account and losing all your followers and all your previous 500 videos. So for a creator who has a lot of videos and put a lot of work into building their experimental or whatever YouTube channel, uh, it's a big thing to just lose everything overnight just because somebody, a guest on the program, said a bad word or something. It's very silly and indecent, I think, the way it has been for many years. So yeah, and we can only hope that it will get a little bit better because there's a lot of things to create videos about and talk about in the years to come, and hopefully we won't get shut down just because we're speaking our minds.
So am I able to say something like the title of an article I read, which is a little bit scientifical for people who don't know biochemistry and immunology. It's a bit difficult, but it's called How to Turn SARS-CoV-2
Uh,
into AIDS
don't
Virus.
don't push it there, lady. Don't
Right.
push it.
I want to know, see? Because yeah, how to
Don't go crazy. Don't go crazy.
No, but that article is extremely chilling because it is an observation that's done coldly afterwards on what's happening in the body and the effect of this little round thing is similar to AIDS and having people presenting with illnesses that are similar to people who have AIDS. And I remember we had this conversation um, a long time ago, um, maybe about a year ago on one of the meetings. And yeah, we were forecasting that we were going to see a plague of diseases that were not happening normally that are suddenly emerging, and it will take another few years to actually see really what's happening. I wouldn't jump on the Hivrona hypothesis that Hugh developed quite well, but I think there's something to it which might explain the zero COVID policy of China if they're a little bit tuned in to what's really happening, and the fact that they are not vaccinating with a messenger type of um, product. There's all sorts of bizarre things that will be kept anyway secret, and we probably will never know about. And if that article or that thing that I read it came out from a Dutch guy who goes deep into things for the last while. I've been reading his stuff. It's not published in any. It's on his blog. It's not published
Okay.
in any well-known
Can
paper.
you, Sophie? Can you post the link to it on
Yeah,
the
it's
chat?
already. I do it now. I put it last
Yeah,
week. I'll get
yeah.
it now. Yeah, no problem.
I remember while you was alive, him and I, we had to just agree to disagree about HIV and COVID. We have been I have been talking about Kennedy's Robert Kennedy Jr.'s new book at that time, his book about Fauci, the real Anthony Fauci, and my understanding after reading that book about the connection between HIV and COVID was Fauci himself, because Fauci became a big guy by not solving the HIV thing. He actually killed a lot of people. I hope I'm allowed to say this, YouTube. I'm just, I'm merely referring the contents of a book, which was a New York Times bestseller, even though he hasn't been interviewed by any, or no MSM media has ever acknowledged his book. So yeah. So the thing about HIV and COVID, according to Kennedy's book, is that bad medicines, I'm not a professional, so bad medicine was given to patients of both these diseases, and the medicine in many cases made things worse, and even took away people's immunity. Yeah, so it's to me, who read that book, at least it was obvious that rather than getting HIV from the COVID or from the medicines for COVID, the the reason that you was able to find the suppression in Google for searching for COVID and HIV in the same search, but that was kind of suppressed by the Google search engine. It would rather be that Fauci was the big scary guy lurking behind the curtain in both cases, more than the risk of getting HIV from the tea or from the COVID. I think.
Yeah, but you see, the mechanism is very much more. It's very difficult to explain. If you can read, it's quite. There's a few terms that you might need to look up, but honestly, it really explains at a cellular level what happens in terms of your immune system, your T cells, your macrophage, your white cells, your antibodies. What happens and how it can transform. I don't know to choose my words. A simple particle into something much more complex that can completely fuck up your immune system. So I was a bit reluctant to follow you too much on that, maybe because of my anxiety at the time, and stuff like that. But maybe also I hadn't really read a lot about it. But when I started to look into it this summer, and when things started to get a bit more liberal and people were not so much afraid of publishing certain things, I started to think, but maybe he was onto something there. I'm not saying that it's the mechanism of the action and long term, especially when and in the article he compares populations that have a natural immunity and populations that don't have a natural immunity, which is the one with the V word, and and those are the ones that will see probably a transformation of their immune system that could lead them to HIV-like diseases and symptoms. And now what Hugh was saying is that he was talking about similarities on the genome and the spike protein, etc., and different structures, thinking that they might have spliced some HIV into the particle. But I think that what the article that I've read has shown, it's more a consequence. Not well, it could be due. It's not due to the genome. It's the way it's working and the way it's collapsing the immune system by repetitively stimulating some pathways that are that little by little are turning off our defenses, which is exactly like what HIV does. So it is again an article for people who've got a little scientific background, but it's not reserved for people who have done medical school or virology or anything. But it's a bit tough to read. It's a bit tough to read.
Yeah, and so the really cynical thing, the way I understand it, the cynical thing about let's say in general that the medicine or the health industry is that they are, at least from what I read in Kennedy, etc., they are capable, they are perfectly capable of intentionally weakening your system so that you will need more medicine, so that the pharma industry can sell you more remedies and more medicines and more vaccines and whatever. So these are not good guys. Just just let me say it that way. They don't have your best interests at heart. That's my impression. And anyone who wants to check out more of these things, I have a top 3 list of documentary films that are from this autumn period in 2022. So we actually have 2 or 3 very, very good and very thought-provoking quality documentaries about the pandemic and Mr. Science, Mr. Fauci himself. So just ask me and I will provide some links for that afterwards.
Yeah, thank you. Well, that's really what I wanted to bring up today. But we have last time. It's funny, like our conversations. What I've noticed is that at the beginning we kind of a bit in the dark and we don't know where we're going because we're not very prepared and we don't have a speaker really as such as the one we had. But what I noticed is that if we keep digging, after a while, maybe after the first hour, things start to get very interesting. Have you noticed that? Because it used to happen also when Hugh was there, but it happened a bit earlier in the meeting. But have you noticed that too? Because I think if we keep exchanging, we will get somewhere. You know? And
I thought about that after the previous meeting, and it seems that when we've talked for about 60 minutes, we come into a phase where, let's say, things we are not so interested in talking about, they kind of put to the side of the road, and we kind of narrow in on something that we are interested in talking about, and then it becomes difficult for everybody to have enough time to talk. So everybody's fighting for the microphone after the first hour, it seems.
There's apologies from DB today, who had some family obligations, so he would have liked to be there, and he sent me a message to say he was busy. So I don't know about Bob. He might have some commitments because of the change of time, because it usually be. So before we go about a bit more debating, I wanted to, not debating really, but talking. I wanted to tell you about the time of the meetings, because with that fakery of the change of time, I think for some people it's going to be earlier in the US, and for some of us it's going to be in Europe. It's going to be a bit also earlier in the afternoon, and the days are very short now. The sun sets quite a bit here earlier. So if we used to do 5:30 UTC, and I was suggesting that we do 6:30 UTC, which means that we are not going with the fakery, and we are also making things a bit easier. I know for Bob, for myself, because I try to be outdoors as much as possible until the sun sets. And today I had to really rush, like, my dog and things outside. So if it's okay, if we do the meetings at 6:30 p.m. UTC, I think that I would like our friends from the US to say, to comment and say, and you in Greenland Does
Mm.
it cause you any
No,
problem?
no. On the contrary, I would be happy to have it at 3:30, which was the usual time for me. So 3:30 is perfect for me.
Cool. So next week I'll amend that on the sub, and we'll do that then. I think for Bob also. Oh, it's fine, Mike said. Okay. And for Bob, I think he has he has some work on the Sunday afternoon that finishes around the time when the meeting is already on. Okay. The time will change in the US too in 2 weeks. Oh God. Time. Yeah. All right. Okay. Okay. Now, also, I wanted to say that in December there's going to be another solstice, and I mean, I remember last year we did it. Hugh was still with us, and I thought it was really beautiful what happened. I remember your fire, Tostin, with the boxes on the rocks, and I remember all the things that everybody did, and I think we should plan to do another one. We could even do it live now that live outside is nearly impossible for lots of us, but no, we might just post what we've done. But we could find a way with people who are good at technology and video editing. We could do a little solstice thing too, but I have it on my plans, and the sigil that I painted on the rock on the beach is still there. I know it's not the purpose because it's supposed to be destroyed, but the weather, the wind, the salt, nothing touched it. There's a bit of lichen on it, but it seems like it's become part of the rock. So we'll see. We can see what form it could take, or we could do it like the last time with the informations from Lionel, or we could put our own imagination and creativity into a very special commemoration of the solstice this year, which might be colder for a lot of people.
Yeah, especially for me because last year was completely out of the ordinary. We had plus 12 degrees Celsius on winter solstice here in Nuuk in Greenland. So that was, that's warmer than most days in July, in December. So, well, we can try that. And one way we could do it. I don't know which day of the week it's gonna be on, but on the following Sunday we could me or somebody else could make a combined video with, let's say, four squares of different fires or different videos of burning fires or something, and we could show that by screen share on the following Sunday, for instance, and comment on it, or so, because I think it's really really hard to do the live thing. It's also, then we have to be out exactly at the same time in different time zones and stuff. So maybe easier to do it semi-live and have a showing of what we did on video afterwards. So.
The solstice is on a Wednesday, and on the Friday there's a new moon, so the nights will be very dark. Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll follow that up in December, so that's good. Okay. Any signs of impending other, changes like that in the weather in Greenland, or is it how is it now? Is it the same as it should be, or is it warmer?
It's been very very mild, but now just the last night we've got 5-6 centimeters of snow, and it's the first serious attempt of staying snow, or the snow staying for the rest of the winter. But that's been sort of back and forth since late September. Yeah.
Okay, because
think-
Europe is experiencing a very, very, very mild autumn, and temperatures in the high 20s or 30s in the south of France, mid-teens here in Ireland, and I know the UK had it very mild too. I'm not sure about the rest of Europe. And I've noticed outside that I have today, I picked some raspberries again, and it's nearly November. And there's flowers that are still there. The leaves are holding on to the trees. They're not falling it's extremely, extremely mild. Even though the Atlantic is very wild, we're having very heavy rains and strong winds, but the temperatures are staying much higher than they should be this time of year. Well, I'm just talking about the weather, but yeah. Have you what weather do you have in the US?
Well, here is very temperate. Not too, yeah, I mean, California is a good place in terms of weather. Can't complain, really. 12 to 20 degree, 20, 25, 20 degrees. Might get colder in the winter, but temperate. I don't know about the rest of the US. I don't know if they're getting a cold spell like towards the Midwest and the East Coast, but I'd love to hear from them.
Is there anybody who has joined the stream on YouTube? Just as a curiosity, because I'm not familiar with these things. You're muted, Tustin. You're muted.
Yeah. I'm sorry. We have about 3 or 4 guests on the YouTube chat, and one of those will be me, of course, following it. So it's not a big crowd, and they're not talking
Never
over
mind.
each other. But yeah, if there's anything very interesting or a good question or something, I'm going to bring it on here.
Yeah, if there's any comments and things like that, or subjects that you'd like us to take our point of view on certain subjects, yeah.
So for now we have are there no McDonald's in Nuuk, Greenland? And there are no foreign chains in Greenland. They are not allowed by the government.
No what?
He's asking about American fast food chains, if they are present in Greenland, and they're not because the government doesn't want 7-Elevens and that kind of things
Good move.
up here. Right.
Okay. I got a message from R, who you can't get onto the meeting because she needs a password. So I don't know. She can't get in. R.
I will look into that. Just a minute.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure I can find out how to get her in.
Okay, I'm telling her that you're looking into it.
Yeah.
I think some people thought that the meeting was starting in 10 minutes instead of, you see, with that time thing. So A usually is there too, and she's probably doing the same thing. No,
Yes,
we didn't need a password. I didn't need a password.
No,
Maybe
but
it's since we started the stream.
You came before I set the password. So
Yeah. Okay.
oh, it's very, very silly with this summertime, wintertime, and I think the European Union even decided to do away with it, to cut it out. But then the pandemic came, and I said, "Oh, we have to keep the summertime for the pandemic because otherwise we'll all be dead." So that's a very, very silly excuse, I think.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Did anybody, while we're waiting for Risa, did anybody read this or listen rather to this guy on YouTube? A post that was put on the sub by a guy called Octave.com about the mystery 1/137 constants in electromagnetism. And were you interested in listening to that? Because I thought it was really fascinating, really exciting. I don't know if you have had a chance. I can put the link again if you haven't, because it's just the sort of stuff that we used to like to talk about, and it just blows my mind, to be honest.
Oh, was it the science video about the
Yeah, it was about that constant
constant?
that you find everywhere in
But
forces between
they
electrons,
couldn't
electromagnetism, and
explain why
well,
it's there, or
they don't explain why. It's just there. So it's just
it's just
like
there.
it appears all the time, and that is the big thing. It's just it appears, and it's
Yeah,
the same number that comes all the time. It's more mystery, which is a nice thing, because it cannot be, but it can be linked to, you can find it in all sorts of, I'll put the link soon, but you find it in observations and calculations on from the Big Bang.
Thank you to Squarespace for supporting.
Sorry, I'm just looking for it now. I found it, so I'm going to link it to you. Yeah, it is.
no, yeah, I found it quite interesting, and yeah, it's just one of those things that like things in nature science can't understand fully, right? I mean, they can detect it, observe
and it's numbers, but it's numbers, but it's not. It's just actually the young guy who's presenting things is very good, because he's not he's explaining the constant, and what is very interesting is that constant is not constant. It was not the same at the Big Bang, and it won't be the same at the end. So it means at the end of everything. So it means that it navigates between chaos and or entropy and nothingness. It's just a thing that will. I'm not very good at explaining. I'm more good at understanding. Or I would invite. It's not very long. It's about 15 minutes, the video. But it's a number that can set you thinking about a lot of things, about a lot of things. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
I
fun.
mean, the thing is, maybe it's not something to think about, because there's been a lot of mathematicians that spent their whole lives trying to uncover the secrets to life, only to get mad, to
Yeah.
lose their lives for it. And it's kind of a lesson that to be humble but in the I don't know how to explain it too, but it's kind of a lesson to just appreciate it, but don't get trapped by it too.
Yeah.
Like
That's exactly what I felt about it.
don't cage
mm.
don't cage it, because it will cage you, kind of thing. I don't. Yeah.
There's somebody called Going North who wants to join the meeting. So I'll admit, Going North. There's Going North. Hello.
Hello.
Hi. Okay. And so other than that, we've no news from Risa, who's trying to join and cannot. I don't know if she's got any luck now.
The thing is, I hear this knocking sound when people, or including myself, when people are trying to get in. I hear this knocking sound, but I have no clue what I'm supposed to do when somebody knocks. I don't know where the door is, so I can't let them in. Right?
Or just say, come in.
Come in. So I can't even let my fake GN going north in.
Well,
But
going north is gone
Oh
again.
no, he
yeah,
came in.
he got in. So the knocking was maybe just to say, I'm here. You don't
Yeah.
have to let me in. I'm already here. I
Well,
don't know.
when he appeared, when there was
Yeah.
a thing written, will you admit going north? I
Yeah.
got
So
it. Yeah. So I pressed
did
on admit.
so you pressed on it.
On
So you were
admit.
allowed. Okay. So you actually let
I let him
you
in.
you let me going north in. That means that you can likely let in the R person as well. If you can tell her to try again, maybe she can come in.
I'll tell her to try again.
Mm.
And I'll tell her to ask to join.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
But I know that she's often got difficulties with technology. I've noticed that sometimes she finds it a bit difficult to get around things on the internet. So I don't know when she try that. Okay. Yeah, I've asked her to try again. I have a funny feeling there's going northeast that wants to come in now. Hello. Who is this? Here she comes. Here's Risa. Welcome, Risa.
Great.
Success.
Problem, but thank you.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
No problem. Okay. I'm sorry that Bob is not there, because we would have heard a lot of things about what's going on in the UK. Because it's been quite an interesting change to see coming a prime minister who is one of the principal stakeholders in Moderna in the UK, and a guy who is a Brexiter. And I would love to hear Bob's observations about that, but I think he's not in any measure to. I don't know, will he be able to join us? I'll see. We'll see afterwards. That's what we have in Europe now. They're all putting their people. All of them. They're all putting all the corporations are putting their men in power everywhere. They're in Italy. They're in England. They're in Germany. They're in France. They're all like nicely lined up. Nicely lined up.
Yeah, we will see, because there is an election in Denmark, and the colonies of Denmark on the 1st of November also. So, but I don't know enough about Danish politics, so I couldn't really tell who is the VEF candidate or whatever. But we'll find out after the fact, I guess. So it's perfectly normal, I think, that a lot of people, a lot of countries in Europe have elections in the same, season or in the same year. That's just an effect of having 40 different nations. Somebody will always have elections, but it seems that many of the nations in Europe will change their governments, after this war started, and we can get some kind of a feeling of where people are going. And I think Germany had an election September last year, so they were kind of unlucky because they're stuck with whatever politicians they are having now. Even the Green Party in Germany, which celebrated after somebody bombed the Nord Stream pipelines so that they will go without gas this winter. So the Green Party celebrated as if it was a green eco-action event, which I find kind of disgusting. But it's an interesting discussion, because if some activists had done it, you would at least have to consider whether or not you should be happy about it. But this just sucks, I think.
I have no idea about that pipeline. I don't want to think about it. I just at the start I was hoping it was a lone wolf. When I see the infrastructure and the surveillance around a thing like that, it doesn't look like, unless you really would have a lot of intelligence to penetrate such a defended thing would be. But I mean, I think there's been so many this waste of time discussions on who did it that I don't even want to go there. You know,
Yeah, I think the only interesting new thing that has come out is that, according to some sources, and I haven't seen this a lot of places, but it seems that after the blast and through the pipes themselves, Russians have sent underwater drones that can go out and take photographs outside the blast area. They sent these drones all the way from St. Petersburg, right, and out into the Baltic Sea, and looked around. And do we recognize any of the equipment around the blast sites? And now, this weekend, they've come out and accused the Royal British Navy for being behind it. I have no clue if that's right, but it's interesting that they had the way, because they were not allowed to come to the area of the blasts and look for themselves, even though they sponsored, they paid for most of the pipelines. So what everybody is saying is that the waters around Bornholm, in the western Baltic Sea, uh, is and has been since the Second World War the most surveilled, the most looked after and controlled sea space in the world, almost, because you have so many different nations and traffic of all kinds of things, east and west and north and south, in that area. So it's practically impossible to do anything in that area without the four closest neighbors to the spot in the sea listening in, because you can listen with these geophones or something, and even watching for ship traffic and air traffic. Everything is sort of surveilled. You cannot do anything fun in that region without being detected by the local powers. So that's kind of what speaks against the Russians having done it, because everybody would know if they were there, right?
blank. Mike, SOS.
Let's see, what other topics are we interested in?
Well, you were talking about bringing back the 12 rules one day.
Oh, right. Okay.
Is there anyone? Because I think we did touch one of them. I can't remember
Yeah,
which.
I saw that.
Mm.
I forget, but yeah, I remember you talked about it at one meeting. Does anyone recall the rule that you discussed, the one that intrigued you, the group the most?
I think we talked about a few of them. I don't think we really stayed too much on one. I think we talked about. Wait a second now. There's not number 2, because I think we've been on that one a good bit, and Kronos, but I brought up do not seek results, because we were talking about activism and stuff, and we had been, talking about. Oh, hi, Confed. And hi, Kay. Yeah, the meeting has already started because of the change of time. And we were thinking we might talk about one of the rules if Mike wants to bring one up.
Sure. Let me pull it out. 12 commandments. Yeah, I think from what I recall, you try to go over all of them briefly, right? I think you tried to,
Well, not really,
or
but
yeah.
it was only number 5, and
Ah,
I don't think the other ones were really
6.
talked about.
Okay. Mm,
But Sophie, you looked into the secret letters of point 11. What did you find out?
Oh, the secret, the alien code. Oh, I don't have the translation there with me. I did translate it. Oh my God, you got me there, because I had it and it's on a piece of paper, and I had it stuck in that, and I've lost it. So that means I'd have to do it again with the code beside me. But I will diligently post it on the sub when I've done my homework. But I'm not going to do it now.
Thank you. It's very good to have a code breaker, like the
Oh yeah,
Enigma
I
code
love
breaker.
I love writing in that code. I keep doing it. I sent you a message in alien font and you didn't even read it. So you didn't have the patience to decode it.
That's because I'm a human. I'm not an alien, so I can't read those things.
Aha, there it is. You see, I have it. But I translate number, unless Mike, you have the Mike, if you have number 11.
yeah, I have to look for it too.
I think it was about
It was
something
about the
about,
flippening, you know,
I mean, yeah. Maybe
like about Greenland ice sheet is melting
No,
along those.
that was the first message that you did in Alien Font that we had with the QR code, and that was to join the group, like, kind of thing. Somebody who could break the code
Right.
had to read a chapter in Hugh's book, and then he could be whatever. But the rule number 11 that he put in Alien Font is, I don't think it's very fundamental, but it's something about enjoying life more than anything else. But I'm not too sure. I'll post that. We'll leave it maybe for now,
Okay. Yeah.
and I'll have fun translating that again. So
Or maybe we can. I was looking at never defile the sacred, and so
yeah,
we were just discussing about that constant that's in nature, right? That's all like certain that video you were watching. It makes me think about that, like the sacred is. It's not something to talk about. It's not something. It's some like like I'll say it like right now, love. So when you talk about love, right, it becomes false. I was reviewing one of the meetings we did before, like certain things we we talked about XR and their issues, right? Because they do certain things, but they don't. It seems like they're only doing those activities because they're trying to uh, they're trying to be content with what like they wanna the sayings they wanna eat their they what am I trying to say? They're just trying to satisfy something in their alien cortex, but they're not looking past it. And so you see, it's even tougher for me to talk about it now because at the end of the day, things like love is shown through action, right? And so that's how I think of the sacred. And also, the sacred could be things like there's tips and hints of it in nature, like what we talked about earlier with the constant. But it's something to see and appreciate that, yes, it's nature, and we're a part of it. We're, we have the chance to observe it, and I guess from our point of view. But it's not something to trap. It's not something to cage. And so, yeah, I find that interesting, because it's like, how does one navigate when we talk about never defile the sacred, when it's difficult, or once we talk.
Live streaming is on.
I'm on it. Yeah.
You know that that number 10 thing that you're talking about with the sacred and cannot be talked about is a very interesting one, because we can't really talk about it. You know, it's true. It's all about action and what you do. So it is really just a kind of a point made that there's no point in elaborating on the sacred and love, like you see most, I was going to say New Age or whatever, vomiting all this bullshit about love and the sacred that really makes me sick. And I think that was a point that Hugh was making very clearly there. And the same goes with religions, you know, it's the same sort of thing. And yeah, it's to bring back action, action and what you do, and not using the names of the alien cortex to pigeonhole some feelings or virtues or spiritual entities. So it's this kind of a safeguard, really, a reminder that stop talking about these things and do things, you know.
Right. And I was just thinking about, with the sacred, like with religions and certain things like that, they use intermediaries, or like priests use symbols to try to catch people off guard, right? Like these signs and symbols like crosses and stars, and I don't know. It's tough to think, because Hugh towards the end of like the meetings 90, like there are powers and symbols, because it's I guess humans interpret it and they give meaning to the symbol, but and it symbols have been used throughout human history, but how does one navigate through these symbols? I mean, if we need them, do we need them to live, these symbols that we find value in? Do they? Yeah, I don't know. I'm just throwing out some questions.
Yeah, you mean symbols like for example, the Christian or the cross or the other. Are you talking about these sort of things, or are you talking
Right.
about the Extinctionati?
Yeah, all symbols. Really.
I'm joking.
Given meaning.
Because Hugh was constantly referring to the 32 characters that are common to all civilizations and that can be observed in cave paintings and that have been there since in all sorts of cultures, and that he kind of related to the phosphenes too, because they would be some kind of primary shapes. Those are, I would put that in a different category, but the ones that have been made by civilization to so-called embody the sacred, I think those are the ones that we have to be very careful of, and what we invest into them. And I think there is a certain amount of energy that you can you can invest in a symbol, and I mean, we're going into the realm of magic, which I know very little about. But I kind of sense that there are things with symbols, there are certain things, and we see what they do. We've seen how they have operated in religions and in totalitarian regimes where they have really moved crowds and rallied people and created wars. So, yeah, that's.
On a on a slightly different note, I think there are some a philosopher who has written about the failure of symbolic thought. That's a much broader theme, but it's like symbolic thought is like have a written language and that kind of thing. So he's looking at how symbols and letters and words and stuff are kind of at the heart of civilization, and therefore just like starting agriculture or taming the fire or something, they are kind of the very beginning of where we went wrong 10,000 years ago. So it's an interesting critique and discussion. So perhaps the symbolic thought that he's thinking about is the same as what we refer to as the alien cortex, right? That you have to put words and labels on everything instead of just relating to things in a one-to-one capacity around us in our local part of the world. But it's a long time since I heard about it. Maybe it's John Saracen, one of these philosophers from America. But I can look more into it.
And just tagging off that, I'm not so sure about the rules or even a great definition of sacred, but I really love some of this conversation. It's a topic I've been looking into a lot lately, and how I first got onto this topic was just learning about linguistics, particularly through Chomsky and the structure of language, how we create new words through a process of mixing pre-existing concepts, which can blur them into a new concept. It's kind of a universal process in how new concepts are created in language around the world. So I started kind of chasing down the roots of this, and just like you're saying, going south, even that Sorensen piece kind of points out to the nature of symbolic thought and how it can pick up momentum, basically. So, in kind of a consciousness of pure experience, things are pretty straightforward, direct, and uncomplicated. But what's interesting is once we introduce symbolic thought, our minds and civilization as we evolve continue to take these symbols and mix them together and increase the complexity. What's really interesting to me is that once you've created the scaffold of language, you teach that to children and it patterns their minds in a particular way. One really good example I think was floating around the sub are people who were raised in the wild, who never learned symbolic thought, or their minds were never patterned by the structures of symbolic language at an early age, and they never developed the capacity to do so. It's a certain kind of pattern imprint placed upon our minds. But as civilization trundles on, these symbols become much, much more complicated. They become more mixed and they hide important concepts. An error or a lie codified in a symbol then gets mixed and remixed and abused and manipulated further and further until it just travels so far from the truth it becomes a tool, perhaps of the alien cortex or malevolent people, to manipulate minds based on concepts they had thought they understood or were near and dear to. I think a lot of the fascistic regimes that people have mentioned earlier use this to great effect. But anyway, I think this is a really fascinating subject. So I just wanted to kind of draw that link from, the roots of civilization into kind of modern symbolic thought and how complicated and perhaps terrible it can be.
Yeah, I think I think is relevant here. That there was a cartoon series for children about the history of the world and the prehistoric and stuff when I was a kid, and I think it's the same with the symbolic culture, symbolic thought, that you have these words that are that you say out loud, and you have the written words, and it's kind of the same thing. It's not that different to just how it spoken and heard. And I think the symbolic thought, the words, the language, was first used in order to conquer the natural world and to excel at the hunting and fishing, and informing other people where the fish is and where the game is and stuff. Just like in that French cartoon series. So first you use language to conquer and become best at everything in the natural world, and to feed your children and succeed in that way. But then at a point in time, humanity comes to the cities, and we come to agriculture, and we come to these growing mega cities and stuff, and it's less and less about nature and about hunting and stuff, and more about getting ahead of the other people, right? So in the beginning, it was like us humans against or in competition with nature, and sort of finding out how it works and how we feed ourselves. But when we settled in cities, it became evil in the sense that we then used it against other people, to lie and deceive, and to give the other people a belief, a false belief, that they have to bring all kinds of food and wine and whatever to us, because we told them that we are put here by God or whatever. And so the symbolic thought and the symbolic culture is at the heart of this, because in order to tell some other people in your town that they have to bring all kinds of goods to you, because you were put there by God, you must first have a thought or an image of a God, and why they should fear this God, so that they can bring all kinds of delicious things to you. So I think, well, I would never say that the language and words and symbols and stuff are evil in itself. It's actually more a question of overpopulation, and I think October is when the UN said that they would officially cross the 8 billion humans on the planet. So that has to be, if it hasn't been already, it's today or tomorrow. But back to the overpopulation when it comes to language and skills and everything. It's the skills and the language is good in itself. As long as we are a relatively small and unpopulous species on the planet. But when we exceed every limit and break every limit, then the only others left to feed on are other human beings. And at least to my naive mind, we were never supposed to fight each other. We were supposed to cooperate and hunt the seals and share it among us, and not live in gigantic cities where we have to feed on each other literally, and to lie and deceive, and make the others have false beliefs, and give everything to the king.
I think you mentioned Chomsky, Confed, and I remember we had a conversation with Hugh a while ago, and I kind of agreed with him that the debate on the meaning of language is is only a debate that makes sense to the alien cortex, really. And when Chomsky started his single-step theory of language, he got into a trap. I've read Chomsky years ago, and he's a linguist, and that's really, and there's much more to it than what I don't really like what Chomsky says on language. To be honest, it doesn't resonate with me. I never really followed him on that at all. It didn't make any sense to me. And this eternal debate on language has to be taken from a complete different premises. That's what I think, and it's still open. But that's what I wanted to say for the moment. Okay. Is there anybody who wants to?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was on mute. I didn't realize. Yeah, and that's well received both from you and from Going South and what you all said. I really appreciate that. And I just wanted to note a place where I had picked up the thread. But yeah, of the universal kind of structure of language, which is fascinating. But yeah, I don't think Chomsky's ever talked about the roots, the implications, the kind of, the kind of subject matter that we're discussing today. I don't think is covered there whatsoever. Found that elsewhere. It's interesting stuff.
Did you read that little essay of Hugh called Adam's Language? That was actually posted on the sub a while ago because I was asked to do it, but I think it's still somewhere. But if you want it, I can send it to you, because he actually does touch on language and the layered brain and the connections and the symbolics, the symbols. I mean, symbolism and stuff. It's quite a 50-page essay, so I wouldn't be able to summarize it. I wouldn't have the capacity anyway to summarize anything that Hugh is to write. But it really that appealed to me. That appealed to me very much.
I'd love to see it.
Okay, I have it on PDF, so I'll send it to you. I think you gave me your email, or else I can post it again on the sub if other people want it. I could post it as a comment under the meeting that we're having now, and so then you can have a look at it. I'll do that when the meeting will be up. Is there anybody who is on the stream at Austin who is asking questions, or is it as an experiment only one or two?
No, we have some more people now. One person is saying she misses Lord Yu, but not a lot of questions yet.
Oh, just going off of the Noam Chomsky, I think Hugh posted months ago, if you recall, Daniel Everett and the Piraha, and there was a fundamental disagreement between Everett and Chomsky in terms of I think it's related to recursion, universal language, and the Piraha. So what they found out was the Piraha, or what I remember, the Pirahas, the way they use language is different from other languages. Like Chomsky was just looking at all the languages of, I guess, the alien cortex. But I think if I were to deconstruct it, because the Piraha's language is not of the alien cortex, it makes them fundamentally different from other languages in the world. But I'll post something. But yeah, he did mention something like that.
I just wanted to mention I remember that piece, vaguely. Yeah, and I think I found the same conclusions you did. It might be worth noting that this kind of analysis of the universality of language is only with modern languages, and the amount of extermination that has occurred of peoples and languages, I'm sure, is untold.
I think it's a fruitless exercise when we start with modern languages, but it's a good base to discuss what we talk about as the alien cortex, because it is again a total. I mean, it's a mirror, and it's made to accommodate. You see, there's so many words we cannot find to really express our right brain, which instead we draw, we sing, we do other things, but we can't. That brain is not using any words and doesn't need them probably. So I think it's a good basis to re-explore how language is actually to serve the alien cortex, and to get out of language. The Piraha example, Mike, is absolutely right. There's a lot of words that they don't even know. They have no numbers either. They don't count. So it's not just words. I wonder. I can't remember. I have the book somewhere and I haven't read it in a while. But I don't know what is their concept of time. I'm not sure. I don't really know that.
That would be interesting, but I would think they would lean more towards Kairos.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
Probably.
they're within nature, or as far as I know. But I know recently they've had running water and electricity, so it's creeping in, right? The alien
But
cortex.
yeah, but your man Daniel, what was his name? Everett or Everett?
Yeah,
he said
Everett.
that their language was close to the talking drums. That it could be whistled or hummed. That it was yeah, and there was different pitches. It had nothing to do with, it had musical pattern. So it hadn't nothing to do. That's why he was a linguist, that guy who tried to convert them, and that's why he could. Well, he could learn their language, and he did manage to learn it, but he could never teach them the American or English. Yeah.
Yeah. So
So it was
there are.
whistled or hummed or sung, you know.
And if I remember part of that too, I think, and my recollection is vague, but I think that the sounds were challenging, but also there was something about the resistance to symbolic representations. Something about the idea that if a person had not witnessed it, it could not be represented to someone else. But I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I remember too a term that, and I really don't know much what it means, but that he was criticizing in Chomsky is recursion, which comes back a lot in Chomsky's theory of language. And I really, if somebody please help me, because I'm not too sure. I remember the term, but I wouldn't be clever enough to define it. Have you looked into that? Any of you? The word no.
It's familiar to me, but yeah, I'm not familiar with that kind of debate. I'd be happy to look at it, seeing the piece. I love that stuff.
Yeah, well, I'll definitely post that piece of you, Adam's language, on the sub, because I don't think I can put a PDF in the comments here. I don't think you can. No, I wouldn't even dream of doing that. But I might have done it on the sub before. It might be there. I'm not sure.
And thanks for the book title, Going South. That's curious. I'm gonna look for that.
Yeah, maybe if you're ready to talk about something else, I posted about Roger Hallam. He's speaking in Newbury in England on Tuesday, and I posted on the subreddit about that and his latest tweet, and I also analyzed the goods and bads about Just Stop Oil and Extinction Rebellion based on things that Hallam has said. I think everybody listening to this show knows that Hallam is the big brain behind all of these eco actions over in England and London. Um, and I criticize his activism or their activism on the level of, is it even possible for these things to change, to end the climate crisis and the things that he promises? And I kind of look at it as a bit toxic or even evil to promise people that this is going to end the climate crisis. Yeah, so go and read that if you want to. And of course, the November 1st speech that he will hold in Newbury will mark the end of the October month of massive activism. So it will be interesting to see where he wants to take it from there. And yeah, maybe as a suggestion for next Sunday, maybe we can have a little summary or discussion of what they did and how much of a splash they made. We already had a soup throwing episode. Maybe that covers it. Yeah, but to discuss it on a sort of higher or philosophical level, or is it any point, that kind of discussion would be interesting. Not necessarily what kind of soup they were using, or what kind of painting they were throwing at that, or what buildings they were spraying with chalk, or how many roads they sat in. That's kind of too detailed a level. But yeah, I'm looking forward to reviewing their October campaign if anybody is interested next week.
It's been hilarious to see the news reports covering if it was tomato soup or clam chowder or vegetable soup. I don't know why, but I just thought that was really funny. I read your writing about this review, and I only looked at it from a surface level, and yeah, it does seem very immoral. Kind of feel like I have a question about why does it matter? But I need to spend some time thinking about that before I could frame it. I mean, obviously, immoral acts are immoral, and I would not recommend anyone trying to hoodwink people who believe they have a some kind of pathway out of climate change. But holy cow, there are a lot of manipulative efforts out there right now. So I don't know. I'll just have to think on that for a bit.
Yeah, let's try and have the discussion next week. I think it's the best way to do it.
So when I post the next meeting, do you want me to put this as what do you want me to put as agenda topic? How would you word it? What would you like me to, if we start on?
Well, that would only be one of the topics, I think. But yeah.
I know there probably will be some other ones, but
I don't know. They do so many different things, so it's hard to summarize in one word. But just put Just Stop Oil or something. Just Stop Oil October campaign or whatever.
Yeah. Okay. The campaign. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But we talked. You had a special meeting that I was not there for, with Bob on tomato soup and the soup. So we can revisit that. Can I ask a question to the people who know about computers? I want to post that piece of you and I think I have it on my Google Drive. So would that be a good thing if I put the link on the sub for you to get it?
That certainly works for me if the link is open to anyone with a
Yeah.
link.
Yeah. I have to do that. Okay. Yeah. I have to open the link. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yes, there was a suggestion on the YouTube chat about what we think about King Charles of England. So maybe we could add that to the next meeting as well. He is, as everybody knows, he's supposed to be a very concerned for the environment kind of a king, or he used to be as a prince. But now it seems that he's one of the young global leaders of the WEF, the World Economic Forum. So that's kind of an interesting character. So maybe put that into the next meeting as a kind of cover all the English episode or something. We talk about Hallam and the King, maybe.
We can do some royalty bashing.
Yeah.
Psychopath
Sure.
killing.
Yeah.
Oh God. What difference does it make anyway? Whether he's called Charles III or Elizabeth the One or the what or the Two or the whatever, Stuart Windsor or whatever bullshit. Anyway, but yeah, why not? Be good for the nerves anyway. Yeah.
Little catharsis. He he can take his place on the scaffold like anyone else. Not that I would recommend that.
Nah, I know. No, we'd never do a thing like that. No.
It's kind of ironic that the first time that we ever get a green king, in quotes, that he has to be this kind of toxic, neon green, pale, wrong kind of green guy who only wants to, enslave us further in the new deep state kind of way, where they use the green things only to strengthen the grip on everybody.
Absolutely, he's probably hand in hand with all the greenwashing thing, and he's been at it for several years. He's a great. He will be a great publicity and a great. Great publicity for all the electric cars and the solar panels and the wind turbines and maybe some kind of also green eating things that they're trying to promote. So I think he would be very good for selling all that. Yeah, he's prepared. The way has been prepared for a long time on those subjects, and I think I think it was Deep Green Resistance had an interesting thing quite a while ago about that, and I'd have to dig it out again. Mm-hmm.
I think there's a really interesting dynamic that could emerge. I'm just thinking about this from a pragmatic position. It's interesting that we have a green king in England here in the 11th hour, and it seems to me, well, I don't know, I feel like I'm observing a trend in the States, at least, where in order to kind of balance and stabilize things, the powers that be are allowing more deference toward, green leaders or green efforts and kind of a greenwashing approach to kind of balance the scales and keep it on liberal capitalism-ish. But I don't know, I just think that that's kind of an interesting trend that I wonder if we'll see, continue to increase is lots of green lip service, to try to counterbalance the more populist and, potentially even more fascistic elements as a way to turn up the volume but still stabilize things. I don't know, but maybe I can save that for the conversation next week.
I know, but it's very interesting what you're saying, because it's not only I see it also as a promotion of the last hour's profits. It's not. It's comforting maybe for the media. It's a good PR operation. It's a psyop. We'll put green people up there, so we'll be fine. We'll be grand. They're going to save us. And at the same time, their friends are going to make billions selling more polluting apparatus to equip your cars and your houses, and don't question the civilization. So yeah, I mean that it could be very interesting next week to actually really deepen especially if we get some audience that's getting a little bit more, I mean, you know, that people want to comment on YouTube and stuff like that, because then it's not just between us. Yeah.
About that, there's a comment on the YouTube about guillotines. I don't know why they mention guillotines after we talk about these great leaders, but they say that guillotines are good because they use clean energy. They use gravity. So there's a big thumb up for guillotines energy-wise on the chat.
Organic bamboo, carbon-free steel. Yeah, this could be great.
I grew up in France. I'm a half French, you know, and they were still using the guillotine for capital punishment when I was a child. It was kind of a, yeah. They didn't. I think they stopped doing cutting heads off in the 70s or something, and then they abolished death penalty in the 80s. But it was still in operation when I was a child. But it is very environmentally friendly once you get a good piece of steel, though. You know, the baskets for the heads are woven in natural willow and everything. The wood, the thing is made of wood and probably sustainably grown.
On that note, I think they used hydro or water energy for a slightly different punishment in the Middle Ages. They used to, for some reason, it was mostly women who was punished this way. Let's say that you are the wife of somebody in the village, and if you were found to speak against, or to speak lowly about your man, you will be punished by being put in a kind of a basket and dipped, publicly dipped, with all the village standing around, dipped in the river and up again. And I'm not sure they always took you up again in time. Sometimes they maybe forgot you or something. But yeah, we have a lot of great historic ways of publicly shaming and punishing people. But they all use the pretty carbon-free energy anyway, so I'm not sure that's the only scale we should judge them on. But it's interesting, you know. People have been cruel for many many centuries.
Yeah. Okay, well, we'll soon be on the 2 hours. I just remember a phrase from the Gospel of John. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. Through him all things were made. Without him nothing was made that had been made. And doesn't this really remind you of what we said, that the alien cortex is God? Because, I mean, there's no other way that such a praise of language could be written in a big book that is completely messed up the whole planet. So, you know, this is really a justification and a proof that that's what it is. Replace God with alien cortex, Mike. Yes, absolutely. So we will revisit language too. We'll revisit the green royalties. We're going to get a lot of royalties out of all this greenwashing, and the campaign of our dear XR comrades and Roger. How did we call him? Yeah. Well, anyway. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So anybody wants to add something before the stream ends and the meeting ends, or?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to next week, and if anyone has stories about the family, the royal family, because people put them on a pedestal, right? Like they honored them, or the queen's death, and people are really in their light. And I think Hugh mentioned before is because the royal family, they have a satwa to them. They exude some kind of shine, but when people look deep down, it's actually grime. Not, it's actually. So one story comes to mind was the story, Hugh's friend who went out to see Craig. I don't know if you recall, but Craig was an was in the royal arm, or he was in the army, the British Army, and he had, long story short, his body parts got, he almost died, and then I don't recall, was it one of the princes or the Prince Charles?
He was in hospital, and he had been. He was between life and death, and it's Prince
Yeah.
Charles, the actual king.
I remember this.
Yes.
Now, continue on the story because it's
Oh,
right.
okay, yeah. So wow, Prince Charles. So yeah, I'm just trying to recall everything, but
He was going to die. I mean, and
he's going to die, right?
and yeah.
Or do you want to say, Sophie? It's heart wrenching.
And
But
it had to do with a bottle of scotch, didn't it?
yeah,
It was a very rare scotch. Go on, Mike. Go on. You know the story.
I'll try. Yeah. So each soldier was supposed to receive one, right, out of the courtesy of the royal family. And so when Prince Charles at the time visited Craig, he said to the attendant or something, the conversation was, oh, he's going to die anyway, right? So let me just keep this bottle of scotch. That's what Prince Charles said. So instead of giving a dying man a bottle of scotch, he kept it to himself because he thought it'd be better if he, the king now, the person that, people put on a pedestal, he could get all the scotch he wants, but he kept this one. And then later on, Craig was able to, he survived the situation, and he got the bottle of scotch, and his way of celebrating the bottle of scotch, when he got it, he pour it down in the ocean, right? And said, "This is our king," kind of like, so it's kind of like a middle finger to him and the royal family. So I think going South said it right. Like, they don't have our best interests, or like, that's just a story to kind of get that shine out of that royal family. They don't have our best interests in heart. And yeah, but I'm very interested if people have heard stories or have their own stories, because it's just to get the illusion that the royal family isn't, or any political leader for that matter, isn't going to be your savior. They're not there to save you.
I think what made that clear to me and to many Norwegians, about 100 years ago, Norway needed a new king. It was because, we'd been under Denmark for 400 years, and then Sweden won Norway in the Napoleon Wars. So then all of a sudden we were Swedes for half a century, and then there was actually a peaceful end of that cooperation with Sweden, where we had a referendum, and then like in 1905, Norway became an independent country. So what do you need if you're an independent country? You need a filthy rich royal family, right? So then they decided that they needed a king, and then they took a telephone or telegraph or something to Copenhagen, and said, "Do you have any free kings and any what do you call it, unemployed kings down there?" "Yeah, we have this guy. He's called something silly, some 5, 6, 7 different names, blah blah." So they sent him up with his wife and their little kid up to Oslo, and he was given the royal castle or a big building in central Oslo. And what they do then is that they just call him King Harald. He was called Jesper, Johannes, blah blah blah, 1,000 different names. And then when it becomes a new job as a king in Norway, he just gets a name, Harald, as part of the job. It's like, yeah, and you have to call yourself Harald. So even the next king, the young prince, who was to become King Olaf, he was called something else as well. He was called 8 or 9 different names as well. None of them was Olaf. So it's all. It becomes very clear that it's all just fake, and they're just taking a name, and there's nothing Norwegian about him at all. Any of them, right? So, yeah, I think that's when I lost my sort of holy belief in the royal family when I read up on that kind of thing.
I will stay silent when we go on this next week, because you could be offended by certain language that I might be using, especially when you're talking to somebody who lives in Ireland and you talk about the British royal family. But we had a few years back, there was one of those people that call themselves lords, Mountbatten, that was gunned down by the IRA and near his castle in Sligo on the west coast of Ireland. And there was a huge outcry. He's a cousin of the Queen, and it was just the biggest scandal. And it's just been unearthed that Lord Mountbatten is being post-mortem, but investigated in child abuse in homes for children in Ireland. So sometimes there is a justice. Anyway, I won't say much about all that, because I know I live in Ireland. I have a British mother. I just have seen it. I don't know. But would be interesting is to hear people who have listened to this. What's his name again? The guy who says that they're reptilians. What is it? I can't remember that guy who's been banned on YouTube during. Yeah, because that's always, I thought that was very funny, but I don't subscribe to what that guy says, but I think he's opened a can of worms there by doing that, because in fact it served a good purpose, even though I really don't subscribe to all the things, but I think he got something right there. It started to
I think
destroy the image, like.
I think it's interesting because I was really repulsed by that guy. I didn't hear you, and I can't remember his name. But when I read about his reptilian theories about the royal families and stuff, I was very annoyed and taking it literally, and I'm thinking he was a complete fool, right? But David Icke, yeah. But I've heard other people using the reptilian word for talking about people like Bill Gates and stuff, and it makes more sense to me. And my thinking is that probably David Icke didn't actually mean or think or believe or imply that they were green shelly reptilians or had some kind of reptilian DNA. It's more like a metaphor. Of course, maybe I was just stupid not to think about it as a metaphor, but I was totally dismissive of David Icke and his entire work just because he published a couple of books about the royals being reptilians, or maybe he did a mistake by not being clear, not being open and obvious about it being a metaphor. I feel kind of stupid now. Okay, I shut up.
I think the metaphor is fantastic. It's just, there's the use of the word supremacy and supremacist worldviews is really big here in the States. It's a helpful way to understand people who condescend others through supremacist ideologies. And I think the Royals, have just generations and generations of practice and worldview behind that kind of supremacist thought.
Yeah, and they have the land and the money, which makes
Yeah, I think it goes back to what I mentioned about the symbolic thought and how they, enslaved. They directed their kind of intellectual weapons towards other human beings instead of nature, and the royals especially have been perfecting this illusion makery, using words and thoughts for thousands of years, exactly in order to make everybody else bring them all kinds of good things, good food and good wine and pretty girls, I'm sure. So it's kind of yeah, they are experts at this.
Is it time to say goodbye? I think. Everybody's muted, so I can't see any answer. But I was wondering, is it maybe time to end the meeting on
Well,
this?
sorry I joined late, but I've enjoyed it.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you all.
know. It's the mess up with the time, and it will be more next week. It will be more clear. Okay. So before you turn off the recording, Torstein, we might just stay silent for a moment, like we always did. Okay. Okay. Goodbye, everybody. Thank you. Thank you very much for all that. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks all.
Goodbye. Thank you.